Chords are the backbone of pretty much all of the guitar music that you're going to be playing. Chords come from scales. What I'd like to do is explain to you how chords come from scales, and then I'm going to explain the Roman numeral system, which I'm going to be using throughout this course, to identify the different chords and how they're functioning. So the first thing we need to do is play a C scale. And we can do that starting on the 3rd fret, 5th string, and we're going to play our C scale going up like this. Okay, so that's my C scale, C major scale. Now, when you harmonize that C major scale, it gives you a certain set of chords. And the chords that it gives you are always going to be the same, no matter which key you're in. So, before I explain which chords are derived from that scale, what we can do is we can label each note. So, you may have heard guitarists say, you know, is it the 1st degree, 2nd degree, 3rd degree, or 4th degree of the scale, the 5th degree of the scale, that kind of thing. Well, what they're talking about is if you label each note of the scale, so this particular, the first note is going to be 1, the second note is going to be 2, the third note is 3, so on and so forth, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then at the octave it's called 8. But in this, it's just the repeat of whatever the 1st degree is. So this happens to be C, this is also a C. Now if I take that same scale and I move it up a half step, I'm in D flat. Okay, now if I take that and move it up another half step, I'm in the key of D. Well, these are still 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, so those different scale degrees are going to be, or what we're going to use to identify the different chords as we play. So the 1st degree, or the first chord that can be, when you harmonize your major scale, the first chord that you get built on the root note C is a C chord. Okay, that's your C major chord. Now, in that chord, the 1 chord, because it's built on the 1st degree of the scale, is always going to be major. Major. The first chord of any scale, any major scale, is always going to be major. Okay? All these are C notes. Okay. Or C chords. The 2nd degree of the scale is going to produce a different type of chord, which is a minor chord. So this is my 1st degree. My 2nd degree is going to be here. If I build a chord on that 2nd degree, it's going to give me a minor chord. Okay, so the 2 chord in every major scale is going to be minor. If I go up to the 3 chord, the 3 chord is always going to be minor as well. And because I'm in the key of C, the 3 chord is E, because C, D, E. So if I play my 3 chord in the key of C, it gives me an E minor chord. And you can play that E minor here, you can play it here, you can play it here. Okay, the bottom line is that the 3 chord is always going to be minor. Now the 4 chord is going to be major. So since we're in the key of F, let's go up. 1, 2, 3, 4. Here's my F. Here's the octave of that. If I play my F chord, it sounds like this. And it's always going to be major. 4 chord in any major key is always going to be major. It doesn't matter where I play that. That F is always going to function as the 4 chord in the key of C. Now, the 5 chord is always going to be major as well, and in this case it happens to be G, because if I go up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, here's my G note. If I build a chord on that note, it gives me a G major chord. If I go to the 6th, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, here's my A. The 6th chord in a major key is always going to be minor. So here's my A minor. I could also play it here. Okay, the 7th chord in every major key is always going to be diminished. Okay, probably the easiest way to play this chord is like this. Or you can just play these 3 notes. But that's a diminished chord, and that's the 7th chord. All 7th chords, the 7th chord of every major scale is going to be diminished. Not to be confused with a 7th chord like a dominant 7th or a major minor 7th or a minor 7th or a major 7th. I'm talking about the 7th chord, in other words, the chord that's built on the 7th note of that scale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. This happens to be B, and it's a B diminished. It's what you get when you harmonize it. So that's what's meant when you're talking about C scale, like when you're talking about the different chords that come from those scales, and you say the 1 chord, the 2 chord, the 3 chord, the 4 chord, the 5 chord, etc. Those chords are derived from the scale because they're built on the different scale degrees of that scale, which happens to be C. And we can transpose all of that just into a different key simply by moving up the fretboard. So in this case, we're in C, right? If we move up to D flat, it's all the same exact formula. The 1 chord is always going to be major, 2 chord minor, 3 chord minor, 4 chord major, 5 chord major, 6 chord minor, 7th chord diminished, and it starts all over again. So it's totally irrelevant which key you're playing in, as long as if it's a major key, you will always get the formula major, minor, minor, major, major, minor, diminished. Okay, that's very important because I'm going to be explaining everything I do from here on out through this course. I'm going to be referencing how the different chords are functioning, if they're functioning as major or minor. Now, this formula is pretty much the same in the minor key, but I'll explain a couple of differences coming up next.